The airport's departure board flickered mockingly as I stared at the list of flights, my carry-on bag heavy on my shoulder. No flights to Honolulu at 10 a.m. No flights to Hawaii at all this morning. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone to check the email from Mom one more time. Flights at 10 a.m. sharp on Thursday, honey. Don't be late like usual. But today was Thursday and there was no flight. A sick feeling crept into my stomach as I dialed Mom's number. Hello. The sound of waves crashed in the background. Olivia? Shouldn't you be at work? Mom, where are you? We're in Honolulu, of course. Her laugh tinkled like broken glass. The flight was yesterday, dear. Didn't you check your ticket? The ticket she'd never actually sent me. The ticket I'd been promised for this family vacation. The first since Grandpa died 3 months ago. Yesterday? My voice sounded distant to my own ears. But your email said. Oh, that old thing. I must have gotten the date wrong. You know how scattered I can be. Another laugh, this one joined by my sister Katie's distinctive giggle in the background. Though honestly, Olivia, it's probably for the best. You need to focus on finding a real job, not wasting time on vacation. That silly art career of yours isn't going anywhere. I closed my eyes, remembering the argument 3 weeks ago when I'd quit my corporate job to pursue art full-time. The job Dad had arranged through his golf buddies. The one that was supposed to be my sensible future. Did everyone else know? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Dad? Katie? Don't be dramatic, honey. We just thought. Well, with Grandpa's inheritance situation, maybe it's better if you start being more practical. Speaking of which, have you reconsidered Mr. Peterson's job offer? Mr. Peterson, Dad's friend who'd offered me an entry-level accounting position. The same position I'd turned down to focus on my painting, my waste of time as Mom called it. I have to go, I said, cutting off her practice speech about practical careers and responsible choices. Don't be like that, Olivia. We're just looking out for you. Oh, and since you're home, could you check on Grandpa's house? The realtor wants to list it next week, but we need someone to clear out the last of his things. The line went dead before I could respond. I stood in the middle of the terminal, surrounded by families embarking on their own vacations, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. Grandpa's house. The Victorian mansion on Maple Street where I'd spent countless afternoons in his study, watching him paint while he told stories about his travels. The house that had been filled with his art, paintings that my parents had quickly sold off after his death, calling them worthless hobby pieces. My phone buzzed with a text from Katie. Here's what you're missing. Face blowing a kiss. Attached was a photo of my parents and sister on the beach, golden sand and turquoise waves behind them. Perfect smiles, perfect tan lines, perfect family, minus the imperfect daughter. I shouldered my bag and headed for my car. Fine. If they wanted me to clear out Grandpa's house, I would. One last time in his study, surrounded by the lingering scent of oil paints and his favorite pipe tobacco. The drive to Maple Street was automatic, muscle memory from years of visits. The house looked exactly as it had 3 months ago, elegant, slightly weathered, with ivy climbing the red brick walls. My key still worked in the lock. Inside, the rooms echoed with emptiness. Most of the furniture was gone, sold off by my parents. But they hadn't touched his study yet. Too cluttered, Mom had said. We'll need a professional service. I pushed open the heavy oak door and for a moment I could almost pretend Grandpa was still there, sitting at his easel by the bay window. The room smelled of him, paint and tobacco and the leather of his old armchair. My fingers traced the spines of his art books, the ones Mom planned to donate. No one reads physical books anymore, honey. Something caught my eye, a gap between 2 volumes where there shouldn't be one. I'd helped Grandpa organize these shelves countless times. I knew every book's place. Pulling the books aside, I found a small leather-bound journal tucked behind them. It was locked, but I recognized it. Grandpa's personal diary. The one he'd always said contained his most valuable secrets. The key. Where would he have hidden the key? My eyes fell on his self-portrait hanging above the fireplace. The one painting my parents hadn't sold because the realtor said it added character to the room. In the painting, Grandpa sat at his easel wearing his favorite silver pocket watch. The watch. My birthday gift to him when I was 16, bought with savings from my first summer job. Mom had said they couldn't find it after he died. I scrambled onto a chair to take down the painting. There, taped to the back of the canvas, was the silver watch. And attached to its chain a tiny key. My hands trembled as I unlocked the journal. An envelope fell out, addressed to me in Grandpa's elegant handwriting. My dearest Olivia. If you're reading this, then you've remembered where to look for the important things. Good. You'll need that attention to detail for what comes next. Your parents never understood my art, just as they don't understand yours. They see the world in spreadsheets and status symbols. We see it in colors and possibilities. But I didn't just teach you about art, did I? I also taught you about planning ahead. The key to my safe is in the watch's inner compartment. Use it wisely. All my love, Grandpa Thomas. P.S. Check the newspapers from March 15, 1962. Some stories are worth more than others. I opened the watch carefully. Inside, behind the face, was another key, smaller, modern. But where was the safe? The answer hit me suddenly. March 15, 1962, Grandpa's first gallery showing. The day he sold his first painting. I went to his filing cabinet, the one Mom called that dusty old thing. Bottom drawer under press clippings. There it was, a yellowed newspaper featuring a young Thomas Harrison standing proudly beside his work. The painting in the photo hung above his desk. Or it had until last week. Mom had finally sold it, calling it just another landscape. But I remembered Grandpa telling me about that painting. Look closer, he'd said. Art isn't always what it seems. I examined the blank wall where the painting had hung. There, behind where the frame had been, a slight discoloration in the wallpaper. My heart pounding, I pressed the spot. A soft click and a panel swung open to reveal a wall safe. The key fit perfectly. Inside was another envelope, thicker than the first, and a USB drive labeled The Real Gallery. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Katie. Just booked a sunset cruise. Shame you're stuck at home with your paints. Artist palette face with tears of joy. I smiled, opening the envelope. Sometimes the best revenge wasn't about getting even. It was about proving them wrong in ways they never saw coming. And Grandpa, it seemed, had left me everything I needed to do exactly that. My hands shook as I spread the contents of Grandpa's envelope across his antique desk. Bank statements, gallery receipts, certificates of authenticity, and dozens of photographs spilled out, each one adding to a story that made my heart race faster. Oh, Grandpa, I whispered, picking up a photo of him standing in front of a gallery in Paris, dated 1985. You clever, clever man. My phone buzzed. Mom again. Don't forget to pack up those old paintings in the attic. The realtor says they're bringing down the property value. Just donate them somewhere. Those old paintings. I looked at the documentation in front of me. Photographs of every piece Grandpa had ever painted, along with their sale records and current locations. The USB drive contained even more. Digital scans, authentication papers, and most importantly, a detailed catalog of his entire collection, including the paintings my parents had sold off for pennies on the dollar after his death. I plugged the USB drive into my laptop and my jaw dropped. There were folders upon folders of information meticulously organized. But it was the video file labeled For Olivia that caught my attention. Grandpa's face filled my screen, his familiar smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. Hello, my dear, he began. If you're watching this, then you've found my safe, and more importantly, you've discovered what your parents never bothered to learn. That art has value beyond what you can see on the surface. He shifted, adjusting his signature bow tie. Your mother called my painting a hobby, your father dismissed it as a waste of time. They never knew that while they were pushing you towards sensible careers, I was building an empire. One painting at a time, one gallery at a time. My eyes widened as he explained. The worthless hobby pieces my parents had sold? All carefully crafted replicas. The originals were safely stored in climate-controlled vaults, their values increasing year after year. Check the folder marked Harrison Gallery Holdings. Grandpa continued. You'll find everything there. The corporation I established, the gallery partnerships, the international sales records. All managed through a private art investment firm in Geneva. I opened the folder with trembling fingers. Spreadsheets, contracts, and financial statements filled my screen. The numbers made me gasp. My phone buzzed again. Katie, this time. Mom says to make sure you clear out Grandpa's art supplies too. No point keeping that junk. Artist palette prohibited. I smiled, thinking of the junk that was about to change everything. One more thing. Grandpa's voice drew my attention back to the video. Look in the folder marked Olivia's portfolio. Inside were high-resolution photos of every piece I'd ever shown him, from my first childish sketches to my recent works. Along with them, documentation showing he'd been quietly entering them in international competitions and galleries under a pseudonym. "You have a gift, my dear," he said softly. "One that your parents never understood. But the art world has noticed. Check your new email account. The details are in the envelope." I found the login information and accessed the account. Dozens of emails from galleries, collectors, and art publications filled the inbox. My work, published under the pseudonym O.H. Blake, had been gaining attention for months. Now, Grandpa's eyes twinkled with mischief. "About that house they're so eager to sell?" I pulled out the final document from the envelope, the actual deed to the Victorian mansion. The one that showed the house wasn't owned by Thomas Harrison personally, but by Harrison Gallery Holdings, the corporation whose ownership had transferred to me upon his death. My phone lit up with a text from Dad. "Realtors coming Tuesday. Make sure everything's cleared out by then." I started laughing, the kind of deep, liberating laugh that comes when all the pieces finally fall into place. Opening my laptop, I began composing emails. One to Grandpa's art investment firm in Geneva, one to the galleries that had been inquiring about O.H. Blake's work, and one to Mr. Chin, Grandpa's longtime lawyer. "Dear Mr. Chin," I wrote, "I've found Grandpa's documents and would like to proceed with claiming my inheritance. Also, please inform the realtor that the house on Maple Street is no longer for sale." A notification popped up. Mom had posted another photo on social media. Perfect family vacation in paradise. Palm tree sparkles. The image showed them at a luau wearing matching Hawaiian shirts. I picked up one of the gallery receipts from Grandpa's desk. A recent sale of one of his worthless paintings had brought in more than their entire Hawaii vacation would cost. My phone rang, the investment firm in Geneva, responding to my email already. As I listened to them explain the extent of Grandpa's art empire, I opened the folder containing my own work. There, in a subfolder labeled Latest Acquisitions, was documentation showing that 3 of my paintings, ones my parents had mocked as amateur efforts, had sold at a prestigious London gallery for 6 figures each. "Yes," I said into the phone, "I'd like to schedule a meeting. And please prepare a complete valuation of the Harrison collection. My family should be back from Hawaii next week, and I have a feeling they'll want to discuss some changes." After hanging up, I walked around the study, running my hands over the books, the easel, the familiar furnishings they'd planned to sell off. This room had been my sanctuary, my inspiration, my connection to the one person who'd truly believed in me. Now it would become something more, the headquarters of Harrison Gallery Holdings under new management. My phone buzzed yet again. An email from one of the top galleries in New York, requesting a meeting with O.H. Blake to discuss a solo exhibition. I smiled, thinking of Mom's dismissive laughs, Dad's disapproving frowns, Katie's mocking emojis. They thought they'd left me behind to teach me a lesson about practical choices and sensible careers. Instead, they'd given me exactly what I needed: time alone in Grandpa's study, where all his best secrets were hidden. Opening my sketchbook, I began planning my next piece. After all, the best art, like the best revenge, required careful composition, perfect timing, and an eye for detail. Just as Grandpa had taught me. The morning my family returned from Hawaii, I was already waiting in Grandpa's study. Now my study. The room had been transformed. Professional gallery lighting illuminated selected paintings. A sleek laptop sat on the restored antique desk, and a projector was aimed at the cream-colored wall where Mom had planned to modernize with floral wallpaper. My phone buzzed. "Pulling into driveway now," texted Mr. Chin. "Your family seems surprised to see my car." I smiled, adjusting Grandpa's silver pocket watch on my wrist. "Perfect timing as always. Olivia?" Mom's voice echoed through the house. "Why is Mr. Chen's car? And what happened to the for sale sign?" "In here," I called out, hearing multiple footsteps approach. They filed in, Mom, Dad, and Katie, still tan from their vacation, wearing designer resort wear that probably cost more than they'd sold some of Grandpa's worthless paintings for. "What's going on?" Dad demanded, taking in the transformed room. "And why is the realtor saying our listing was cancelled?" "Please sit down," I gestured to the arranged chairs. "Mr. Chin will explain everything." The lawyer entered, carrying his briefcase. "Ah, perfect. Everyone's here. Shall we begin?" "Begin what?" Mom's voice had that sharp edge I knew so well. "We have a house to sell and—" "Actually," I interrupted softly, "you don't." Mr. Chin opened his briefcase, distributing documents. The house at 947 Maple Street is owned by Harrison Gallery Holdings, a corporation established by Thomas Harrison in 1985. Upon his death, ownership of this corporation transferred to his designated heir, Olivia Harrison. Silence fell as my family stared at the papers. That's impossible, Dad finally sputtered. The will clearly stated. The will you saw, Mr. Chin corrected, dealt only with Thomas's personal effects. The corporation, its assets, and its holdings were transferred through separate legal channels. I pressed a button on my laptop, and the projector sprang to life, displaying a slideshow of Grandpa's international gallery showings, sales records and asset valuations. Harrison Gallery Holdings, I explained, manages one of the largest private art collections in the country. Those hobby pieces you sold after Grandpa died? They were replicas. The originals are stored in a climate-controlled vault in Geneva, currently valued at approximately $48 million. Katie dropped her phone. Mom's perfect tan seemed to pale. But we sold. He stammered. Copies, I finished. Very good ones. Grandpa believed in protecting his investments. I clicked to the next slide. Speaking of investments, the screen filled with press coverage of O.H. Blake's recent gallery showings. Rising star in modern art, one headline declared. Blake's work sells for record prices, announced another. O.H. Blake, I said quietly, is me. Grandpa had been submitting my work to galleries for years. Those amateur paintings you mocked? They're now selling for 6 figures each. Dad stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. You can't just. Actually, she can, Mr. Chin interjected. And there's more. The trust fund you've been accessing for the past 3 months? It was a small account set up specifically to, shall we say, reveal true characters? I pulled out my phone, showing them Katie's text from their vacation. You left me behind to teach me a lesson about practical careers and sensible choices. But Grandpa taught me something more valuable. That true art, like true character, reveals itself over time. The house, the art collection, the gallery connections, all of it belongs to Olivia now, Mr. Chin confirmed. And given recent sales, the corporation's total value is approaching 9 figures. Mom sank into a chair. 9 figures. But that's not why I asked you here, I said, standing to pull down a cloth covering one wall. Behind it hung my latest work. A triptych of paintings. The first showed a family at an airport, one member conspicuously missing. The second depicted a study filled with hidden treasures. The third revealed a young artist emerging from shadows into light. This series, I announced, will be the centerpiece of my first solo exhibition at the Meridian Gallery in New York next month. They're calling it Legacy. The Meridian? Katie whispered. Even she knew that name. But that's one of the most prestigious galleries in the country, I finished. They're particularly interested in the story behind these pieces. About family, betrayal, and hidden truths. My phone buzzed, an email notification about another sale of my work. I let them see the price. You can't do this to us, Mom finally said. We're family. Family. I laughed softly. Like when you lied about the flight date. Or when you sold Grandpa's life work for pennies without even trying to understand its value. I touched the pocket watch on my wrist. You saw everything as worthless that you didn't understand. Grandpa saw the potential in what others overlooked. Mr. Chin cleared his throat. There are some additional matters to discuss, specifically about the unauthorized sale of corporate assets. Those replica paintings were still company property. Dad's face darkened. Now see here. The corporation is willing to forget about pressing charges. I cut in, on certain conditions. I laid out my terms. They would publicly acknowledge their error about Grandpa's art, attend my gallery opening in New York, and most importantly, stop trying to force their version of success onto my life. And if we refuse? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Then Mr. Chin files charges for the illegal sale of corporate assets, and this becomes a very public legal battle. I gestured to my triptych. Either way, the story will be told. You just get to choose how it ends. They left an hour later, subdued and shell-shocked, clutching copies of the documents that proved everything. Katie lingered in the doorway. That painting, she said hesitantly, pointing to the third panel of my triptych. The light, it's beautiful. Thank you, I replied sincerely. You should come by the studio sometime. Really come by not just to mock. She nodded slowly before following our parents out. After they left, I sat in Grandpa's old leather chair, my chair now, and opened his journal again. A loose page fell out, one I hadn't noticed before. My dearest Olivia, remember that art, like life, is about more than what others see on the surface. Your parents wanted you to follow their path. I'm giving you the tools to create your own. Use them wisely with creativity and compassion. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Love always, Grandpa. I smiled, touching the pocket watch he'd known I'd find. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the study in shades of gold and shadow. Perfect light for painting. Opening my sketchbook, I began working on a new piece. This one wouldn't be about betrayal or revenge. It would be about transformation, about hidden treasures revealed, about the legacies we choose to carry forward. After all, some things, like art, like truth, like vindication, were worth waiting for. And some lessons, like the ones Grandpa taught me, were priceless beyond measure. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from the Meridian Gallery. The waiting list for your opening night is over 200 people. The art world can't wait to meet O.H. Blake. I looked at my family's empty chairs, then at the triptych that told our story. Sometimes the best revenge wasn't about getting even. Sometimes it was about soaring so high that those who doubted you could only watch you rise. Just as Grandpa had planned all along.